When I was 15, I spent the weekend at my friend Anthony's house. His parents were away, and I rode my bike over, leaving it in the backyard before sneaking in through the back door. We spent hours playing video games and eating junk food, eventually getting bored and making prank calls by 10 p.m. Anthony called a few pizza places, then I dialed random numbers. On my fourth try, someone picked up. His voice was deep and rough, just a simple, "Yeah." I couldn't stop laughing from Anthony's antics in the background, but the guy on the other end stayed silent. Trying to regain my composure, I asked, "Sir, would it be all right if I borrowed one of the wheels from your car?" He immediately asked my name. "What's your name, kid?" I replied, "Bob." He paused. "Really? You sure it's not Anthony?" That's when the realization hit me. I looked at Anthony, whose face had turned pale with fear. I hung up quickly, terrified of who I was speaking to. Who the hell was that? I asked Anthony. He had no idea and said the caller ID only showed his dad's name, not his. We researched it online, but couldn't figure out how we'd known Anthony's name so quickly. We even asked on Yahoo Answers, but no one had a similar experience. Anthony didn't want to call his dad, so we continued watching the movie. Just as I was forgetting about the call, we heard the front storm door open and the doorknob turn. It didn't get far before the lock stopped it. I went to the window to check and saw a tall figure standing outside. When he noticed the blinds moving, he looked directly at me, and I quickly hid. We heard the back gate open, and I realized I'd forgotten to lock the door. Anthony urged me to shut it fast, so I ran towards the hallway. When I reached the back door, I froze. A figure stood outside, looking in. He stepped inside, and we scrambled upstairs, trying to be as quiet as possible. Hiding under the bed, we listened as footsteps moved through the house, getting closer. The man checked the closet, then stopped right next to the bed. My heart raced as I covered Anthony's mouth to keep him from making noise. After what felt like forever, we heard him leave the room, but we didn't dare move. Finally, I whispered to Anthony, "Think we can make a run for it?" Just then, Anthony screamed as the man dragged him from under the bed. I grabbed a screwdriver and lunged at the man, causing him to release Anthony. We bolted out the door and into the woods, hiding behind a bush as the man searched the yard. After a tense few moments, we sprinted back to the house, remembering to lock the door behind us. Anthony called the police while I kept watch from the windows. When I turned on the backyard lights, I saw the man standing near the trees, watching us. He vanished into the woods, and that was the last we saw of him. 5 years later, nothing more happened, but I still wonder if the prank call was somehow connected to the break-in. I'll never know for sure. A few years ago, my wife and I had a huge argument, and I ended up crashing at my buddy Paul's place. He had a big house, and I needed a break from the tension at home. After a few beers, Paul offered me his guest bedroom. It was quiet, and I quickly fell asleep. But around midnight, strange noises started coming from one of the other guest rooms. I assumed it was Paul, but after a while, it got so loud that I went to check. The door was locked, but I cracked it open and found Paul in his room, asleep. He told me the rooms were locked because they had personal stuff in them, so I went back to bed. But as I started to drift off, I heard a tap, then a faint voice. I ran back to Paul's room and convinced him to unlock the door to investigate. We went into the room and immediately felt a cold breeze. The window was wide open. There were strange marks on the bed, and some of his valuables were missing. Paul rushed to check the next room. We caught sight of a shadowy figure jumping out the window onto the patio roof. We tried to chase him, but were too late. In the third room, we found bloody sheets and a missing butcher knife, along with empty drawers. It turned out that a group of dangerous people had been living in the house for over a week, stealing from Paul and even eating his food. We never caught them, but we're lucky we didn't run into them. That night changed everything. I'll never forget my first sleepover at my friend Jordan's house. We were 10 years old, we played video games in his huge basement, then crashed on the couches. I fell asleep quickly, but woke up later to see something strange in the corner of the basement by the stairs. It was tall, reaching almost to the ceiling, but when the TV went off, it vanished. I froze, too scared to move. The next thing I knew, Jordan's mom was screaming upstairs. We rushed to her room where she was crying, and his dad was frantically searching the house. There was no sign of anyone having entered. Years later, Jordan told me his mom sometimes mentioned seeing a tall, dark figure by their bedroom door. I'm convinced that's what I saw in the basement that night.